whoever said that there's such thing as an afternoon slump was definitely lying. The past 2 sessions have just been incredible and hopefully super energizing for you, and the next is no different. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to share the stage with the incredible Tufts University team. I'll start off by saying my name's Megan Jager. I'm a Director of Customer Success here at Evertrue, and I am delighted that this crew of 3 has been willing to let me share the stage with them. So we have Sean Devendorf, who's the Senior Director of Annual Giving, Rachel Laquadera, who's the Director of Annual Giving and Volunteer Management, and Tessa Buckley, who's the Assistant Director of Digital Fundraising and Direct Marketing. So we are actually going to take a cue from this morning's session and actually start off with a video to frame the conversation that we're about to have.
My presence here is like more than just myself. In the future, because students like me and the struggles that we go through, it'll be easier for people 20 years down the line. And that's just something that keeps pushing me every single day. College was such an abstract concept to me. I knew I wanted to go and something I was gonna do, but I didn't really know what it was. That's what it means to be first gen, is always having that gap. That bridge is never going to be there because I am the first one to come on a college campus in my family. So I want to make this journey easier for people like my baby sister when she's my age. I'm the bridge that's going to make that in the future.
Hey, the Evertrue team will be coming around with Kleenex for whoever needs that. But Sean, why did we start with this video to frame the conversation?
No, thanks, Megan. And even before we start, I just want to thank Oscar, the student that took part in that video. He really just shared his story very openly and very honestly and really helped us demonstrate the impact of giving and what it means. So the reason that we started with that is this is actually a video that we use with the Tufts University Alumni Association First Gen Scholarship. It's a crowdfunding project. They've been running it for 3 years. It's been very successful. We've raised over $26,000 this past year for a scholarship for a first-gen student, and it was really a participation-based drive and got over 300 donors. And the reason that we highlight this is kind of a microcosm of our retention strategy. We really think about it as relationship-driven, as impact of gift-driven, and it really helps us to get that across. So we thought it'd be helpful just to frame that, use that to kind of get everyone's attention to start the session, and then move on from there.
Perfect. So a theme that has come up in previous sessions is just the challenge of alumni participation. I'm sure many of you in the audience are facing this challenge at your own institution. The interesting thing and the very hopeful thing is that things are a little bit different at Tufts University. And so we really want to key into the things that you're doing today that are kind of allowing you to buck that trend a little bit.
Sure. So this is a chart that shows our annual giving over the past 8 years. This is specifically undergraduate alumni. So just undergraduate alumni. We moved from in 2015 about 19.5% to this past year 22.1%. So we've been able to grow over time, add about 2,000 total undergraduate alumni donors. So we've been very happy with that progress. We've been able to kind of move that ladder, move the number of undergraduate alumni donors. Across Tufts, we have about 42,000 donors last year across all schools, giving through all avenues. We're really just focusing this talk today on undergraduate alumni for the most part.
Perfect. Okay, great.
And
how are you doing that, Sean?
it's a good question. I didn't know that was coming. So it's a couple things. We talked before in the video that we showed at the start. That was a volunteer-led project. It was really focused, impactful. You know what you were giving to. The volunteers were engaged. We used Evertrue to look at everyone that had interacted with a post for the year that was either first gen tagged or scholarship tagged, and retargeted people towards that project. So that's just kind of one avenue that we're taking. So this growth has really been due to affinity-based fundraising. Mm-hmm. It's us really thinking carefully about how we're talking to our alumni, putting forward what they want to give to them, really thinking of the university as a cause, the college as a cause. How do we get that mindset flipped? How do we have them think about the university in that way? And the way that we've done that, athletics-based fundraising, people want to give to what they cared about on campus. Giving Tuesday, which we'll talk a little bit more about, is our day of giving, really putting a lot of different causes front and center and saying, you can support this, we want you to support this. And a big part of it is the retention strategies that Rachel and her team put in a few years ago, kind of in 2014, 2015. They're really starting to take hold and have an impact. And just kind of underpinning all of this is that affinity-based fundraising model. So it's crowdfunding that Tessa will talk a little bit about, but really volunteers. And what we talked about in the session this morning with HubSpot and other presenters, who is delivering your message? Who is that authentic voice? And it's that peer connection. And we have an incredible volunteer program leader in our office, Alice Shaw, who's in the audience. Alice? She's ringing the cowbell, which we'll talk about in a second. Has just done an incredible job of building up the number of volunteers we have recruited who have fundraising kind of in their volunteer job description. And increasing those number of volunteers has just been critical overall.
Great.
That's kind of the quick explanation.
Okay.
So what we'll be talking about today, we're going to give a lot of information to you, and I just wanted to kind of preamble that a little bit. We're talking about stewardship and retention, and really how it's a relationship-driven strategy. This touches so many areas of what we do, so many teams that we work with, that's kind of hard to do it concisely. So we're going to give you a lot of information. Hopefully some of it's relevant and helpful to what you're looking to get out of this. But our goal was to give you as much as possible to say, here's what it takes to really think about retention and really build a philanthropy and build a community of donors. And that kind of leads into my first topic area, which is really just the culture of philanthropy. How do you think about that? It's a big thing to say. How do you actually institute it? So we launched Brighter World, the campaign for Tufts, a few years ago. It's a $1.5 billion campaign. We were incredibly intentional from the start about putting the annual fund and annual giving front and center of the campaign. To do this, I think it's important to have leadership buy into that. We have an annual giving chair for the campaign, as a former vice chair of the board of trustees, helped recruit an annual fund chair or co-chairs at every annual fund at the school across all of our graduate and professional schools. So we're not just saying this is going to be a priority, but we're getting volunteer structures in place to make sure that we're held accountable to it. Little things, just how you think about the marketing. We talk about every gift being jumbo. Our mascot is Jumbo, so it makes it a little bit easier. But really that mindset that every gift is important to this campaign and making sure that we get that message out there early and often. And our volunteers are really backing this up. So this is a tweet from Diane Hessen, who's spoken at this conference before. She's a trustee at Tufts. She's an incredible ambassador and just really wants people to give at this is a trustee, someone that's involved in the highest level decisions at the university. Tweeting out and wanting people to give back in any way that they can and really tying it to something very specific that they can be part of. We've done a lot. We've had some great success with building more of a student philanthropy environment on campus. We have a person that's just had about 40% return or increase on what we've been doing with our student philanthropy, but really focused on messaging, not just, hey, give us $1, it's Giving Tuesday, and really building that culture of philanthropy up overall and the importance of that. So that's kind of what you think about with the base. What we think about a lot, too, is how we build a culture of philanthropy internally, a culture of annual giving. So one really simple thing is just have annual fund 101 presentations. Have your staff members, and I think we've now had probably 6 different staff members on our team really do that. And it's been really critical to the overall importance of just getting it out there. What is annual giving? How can your staff help that aren't on the team? And what's the importance of it? The fellow in the tux making a phone call, that represents our contact nights. We've just gotten more and more staff involved with reaching out. So we have very targeted lists 4 times a year. We've gotten about 40 staff members whose primary affiliation is not annual giving to participate in these. And that's been critically important because then they're on the phones, they're on email, they're reaching out with social media. They kind of know what the rhythm is and kind of how to reach out to people, why it's important, and also just gets them thinking about the annual fund. So from major gift officers to prospect research, we kind of get everyone involved. And then just kind of celebrating. It's so important to celebrate success, right? You have to celebrate. If you're going to say this is important, you have to make sure that you're saying why it's important. So we developed the cowbell as our method of celebrating annual fund success. We have some Tufts branded ones. Have you ever seen, how many people in here have seen the iconic Christopher Walken Saturday Night Live skit with a cowbell? All right, cool, great. If you haven't, watch it, maybe not right this second, because I think what we're saying is pretty important. But please do watch it. And in the skit, he talks about always needing more cowbell. We always think you need more annual fund dollars, so we combine the two. And it's just a fun way. If you get an annual fund gift in your office, you ring it, people walk down the hall, they say, what happened? And we get to have a fun conversation about it. And we developed a Golden Cowbell Award. So that is an award that we give out at the division meeting in front of everyone to someone whose primary job responsibility is not annual giving, to really highlight what they've done, what they're doing, and how they're helping to raise the importance of the annual fund overall. And just in terms of building culture, one thing I didn't touch on in the beginning when you said like how has this increase happened, a huge part of it is just our team. It's our staff. We've had very good retention of our staff. We have really smart people who are doing the work of annual giving. And I can't just underscore how important it is that people like Rachel and Tessa and Alice and Chris Pino's in the audience too as a major gift officer really buy into the importance of this and just really be committed to it. And that's just a huge, huge component. Just to summarize really quickly, just key takeaways, we'll do this at the end of each section. Just host an annual fund 101, pretty simple way to get people involved. Try to put it into onboarding for new staff. And really just message the importance of giving at every level. What is your every gift is jumbo? What is the way that you can quickly say this is important, but really even more importantly, tie it back to what impact it has. So if they really care about giving to the Leonard Carmichael Society, which for us is a student organization that does community service, make that easier for them, make that possible. You want that connection point to happen. I would say I'm not as worried about cannibalizing the 22% of our alumni who are giving to give to a different area. I'm more concerned about the 78% who aren't. And what can we do more effectively to engage them? Host a contact night with staff. Bring people in. Ask people to help. You'll be shocked how many people that you didn't think were going to get on the phones do it, and they're pretty good at it. And then to celebrate success. I think it's just critically important that we celebrate success overall.
That wasn't a good one. I'm out of practice.
We have bigger cowbells.
Yeah, okay. So the theme of this conversation is really about retention. Everybody knows that they should retain donors. It's easier, it's more cost effective to keep a donor rather than to get a new one. But what Rachel's really going to do is really break down how they measure retention, how they look at those results, and how you actually make a plan for what to do about it.
Great. So about 5 years ago, we created an annual giving churn report. So this is actually focusing on undergraduate alumni giving. So as Sean had mentioned, we really support giving to anywhere at the university because it helps with alumni participation. But this churn report, if you don't know what churn is, it's the percentage of your donors that are leaving every year. So we wanted to make sure we were focusing on the right audiences. Earlier today, they talked about 60 to 70% is a good amount of retention rate. We hover around there, but obviously we always want to be higher. So we decided with this report that we really wanted to focus on our LIBONs and our first-time donors. So we first focused on our first-time donors. We made a switch about 3 years ago. We had a loyal donor program that was focusing on renewing gifts to the annual fund. Now we focus on just annual giving. So again, giving to anywhere at the university. Tufts has a medical school, a veterinary school, but if our undergraduate alumni would like to give to those areas, we want to recognize that. So we identified this great couple, Saul and Robin Gittleman, who are beloved faculty members, and recognized and named the society after them, so giving 2 or more years to anywhere at the university. This is an example of a calendar that will be going out to our donors in the fall. The actually wall calendar has been very well received, ironically. I enjoy one, so that means everybody else must.
Yeah,
but
I do too. We talked about this.
So I would say only about 3 people say they don't want one. So we have been able to steward our donors through this wall calendar, through a webinar actually with Saul, a webinar with our student workers who are talking about their experience at Tufts and giving them access to events. But really we try to every year make sure throughout the year after they renew their gift that they know that they are part of this group, that their gift has an impact. And we have seen this group grow by about 1,000 alumni in the past 3 years. So it obviously is having a strong impact. So personalization of stewardship is obviously very important too. So as soon as our donors, as soon as we receive a gift, they get this personalized automated stewardship email. We've worked really closely with our tech team. There's other pieces of stewardship they will receive, but we try to get this out as quickly as possible. So personalized subject line, we put in exactly what they gave to, but just points of impact. At the bottom of this email, it's cut off, but we bring in the campaign logo as well, so they know their gift is part of the campaign. We also follow up with a print note card that says their gift is part of the campaign, knowing again that every gift makes a difference. So this is an example of our first-time donor packet. So as I had mentioned before, we really wanted to focus on this group. They receive a note from our annual giving chair. There's a notation there about the Saul and Robin Gittleman Circle that they will be part of when they renew their gift the following year, and a note from a student, and that has been really great, a handwritten note. So we really utilize our students in that way.
Yeah, I love the theme of personalization. I mean, we've heard it throughout the morning, but I think when people think of personalization, they think of time, they think of money, all the resources. But there are ways that you can personalize an experience at scale with technology and data. And so I know you've been using several different tools in order to do that. So talk a little bit about how you've been able to achieve that personalization without exhausting resources.
I'm going to give one example now and then another towards the end of the presentation. So some of you may remember that June 30th was a Sunday this year, so we were kind of scrambling. And so June 28th, we were like, we need to just get this done, get this out. So we used Hustle as a text application that we actually had been using all year. We had been using it just for event outreach and engagement, but we decided to use it as a solicitation strategy. It is a one-to-one, not a mass communications. We had to individually press text to about 2,000 individuals, and this is one example of hundreds of positive responses we received for reminders. So it was really a successful outcome with, sweaty hands as we sent out lots of texts. We had never done that before, but it was very well received. So a few takeaways. If you can create your own churn report, it wasn't something I technically could do, but we had some great people to assist us, and it's something I look at actually every day. If you can automate your stewardship, again, that's very helpful. We even automate our monthly renewals using digital tools, but using your greatest assets, faculty, students, and really it's being as personal as you can throughout everything that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. So now we're going to shift into kind of more of a personalized approach to solicitations, talking about crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is getting a lot of buzz across the advancement industry, and Tufts is using it in a really creative way to really build a base among their constituents. So Tufts, I'd love for you to talk more about what you're doing within crowdfunding and how that is allowing you to grow your donor base overall.
I would love to talk about it. Thankfully, I've prepared. So crowdfunding for us, as Sean mentioned, roughly 22% of our alumni are kind of indoctrinated into the idea of giving annually. They understand maybe just the idea of giving back to their alma mater, or they just get our reminders and know to give. So we've got this 78% of people who just kind of quite aren't there yet. So we decided to use crowdfunding for us as cause-based marketing. So Tufts as an institution, sometimes people don't know where their money goes. They worry, like, what is this actually going to go? So we use crowdfunding to do really targeted, affinity-based fundraising that tells a really great story. And then we use volunteers to do peer-to-peer outreach. So everything is very personal, very targeted, moving away from kind of just give to Tufts and more like give to this one thing that you really care about. So an example of this that recently was really successful for us is this program called TUPIT. So TUPIT is the Tufts University Prison Initiative of Tisch College. So you can see why they make it TUPIT. So Tisch College is a college at Tufts that's really focused on civic engagement. And they have this incredible program where they teach incarcerated individuals to earn credits towards an associate's degree, and Tufts students can take classes in the prison with these individuals and earn credit for classes. So they came to us and basically said, we just don't have enough money. More people want to take this class in prison and we can't accommodate them. How can we get more money? So we work with them to develop a crowdfunding project. So there's an incredible video that comes with this, a lot of great stories that we were able to share. And this is the kind of thing where this probably wouldn't make it into our direct marketing, right? Direct marketing is like bang for the buck. It's, one-page letter is not going to be able to showcase all the great work at Tufts, but crowdfunding will let us do this. So these are students and faculty who really cared about this project and used their networks and reached out and said, hey, this is something I'm involved with. Would you consider supporting this? And so these are two examples of the stewardship that donors got to this program. So when you gave to TUPIT, you got this great report back of exactly how much money they raised, what they were going to do with the money, and then these two great anecdotes from people who are saying, I'm in prison, and to know that there are people who care about my future is really powerful. So showing the work that Tufts is doing in the social impact of this is huge. This is a social justice issue and an access to education issue, and crowdfunding is letting us tell that story. And then additionally, in terms of relationship building, beyond just giving to crowdfunding is great, it's building our ecosystem internally, which is really an unexpected benefit of crowdfunding for us. So one, we're learning a lot about our alumni this way. So if somebody just kind of traditionally gives to the annual fund, but then starts giving to, say, a club sport that's crowdfunding or a department, we're learning a lot about them, and we can catalog that and then repurpose that. So in our direct marketing, we can tailor content to them. We can use EverTrue to kind of track their social interactions and target digital things. And that's the kind of stuff we'd never be able to get at scale. We can't have one-on-one conversations with everybody, but crowdfunding is letting us intake information and use it again. And then it's really building bridges for us between our annual fund team and our major gifts team. So we do work really closely with our major gift officers. And now when we have crowdfunding projects that are sort of percolating at Tufts, we bring in major gift officers at the beginning to see if perhaps they have people in their portfolio who might want to do a challenge or a match. And then when the crowdfunding projects are live, they push them out to their portfolio and say, hey, last time we met, I remember you talked about social justice. I wanted to share with you this really great program that's happening at Tufts. So we're able to continue to kind of build together that the annual fund is all of our jobs. And then lastly, the volunteer engagement here. So all of our fundraisers for crowdfunding are volunteers. So we want to give them, my job is to give them, the best experience they can have, to show them that we're so grateful for their work, that their work is going somewhere really powerful, and that their relationship to Tufts isn't about just writing a check or kind of anonymously giving, but that we really care about them and we support what they care about at Tufts. So key takeaways, don't let crowdfunding operate in a vacuum. We really try very hard to continue to use it as building a base and then being able to kind of re-bring those people into the annual fund in other ways. Repeating projects is great. We've had great success with that. So if we can have a project kind of perform annually, we're building kind of a mini annual fund for that affinity, and people are being resolicited in the way that they've given and the way that they like to give. Crowdfunding, when we first launched it, this was a big discussion internally. People wanted to kind of protect those donors and keep them very separate from the rest of our groups. And we really pushed to be able to resolicit them thoughtfully, of course, and carefully, but resolicit them in other channels to hopefully kind of bring them along, that Tufts does incredible work, and you may have come in through the sailing team, but by the way, there's also scholarships for student athletes, and perhaps that's something you might want to know more about. Bring in your major gift officers, hugely important. And then in general for us, volunteer engagement is so much a part of our relationship building. And so we kind of allow that to be the best experience possible for our alumni when they volunteer for crowdfunding projects.
That's great. I love that when we had been talking about crowdfunding throughout our preparation, largely preparation on the Tufts side, but we talked about fundraising as the strategy and not necessarily the goal. So drawing people in through affinities and causes that they care about, immediately showing the impact of their dollar, and then building the trust that they have in the institution as a whole to be able to have the confidence that they could give to other areas on campus and have that same confidence that the dollars that they are giving are actually having an impact. So I also love that you talked about bringing in other parts of the advancement team, so major gift officers, just in general having a culture where people care about the annual fund, know about the importance, but I also know that volunteers have been a really big part of your success. Does anybody manage volunteers in this room? Would anybody say that it's an easy job? It is really challenging to manage volunteers, but because they've been such a big part of your success, I'd love for you to talk about how you retain, or how you recruit them, how you retain them, and how you kind of allow them to achieve success within the annual fund.
So this is an example, or the growth of our undergraduate fundraising volunteers, primarily reunion committee members and our young alumni cohorts of volunteers. As Sean had mentioned, a great colleague, Alice Shaw, who's in the audience, she and I, and there's a team of 3 FTEs that work with our volunteers. So we've seen tremendous growth in the program, and that has helped obviously with our alumni participation numbers too, with that peer-to-peer outreach. Our young alumni volunteers are in strategic areas all over the country, about 5 key cities. And what's been great about the volunteer engagement out of our annual fund office, our annual giving office, is that we work on both engagement and fundraising. So they are encouraging people to attend events, communicate with the university, but also give back. We do that through challenge opportunities, or again, encouraging them to give to affinity-based programs or crowdfunding efforts that might be important to them. But really it's about engagement, so making sure they either reconnect or connect for the first time with the university through this peer-to-peer outreach. It's been really successful way for our development officers, a major gift team, to have their prospects be part of this volunteer experience. They've had a really great experience, and that has yielded some great conversations, some additional large challenge gifts. They'll challenge their class to give back. So we've seen annual gifts definitely increase through people's volunteer engagement. So one area that we've seen a lot of growth, as Sean had mentioned, our Giving Day is on Giving Tuesday. These volunteers are representative of volunteers across the entire university, so not just the undergraduate population. It's been really successful way for us to have such a successful Giving Day. So these 2,000 volunteers represented or had the impact of over 8,000 gifts last year. We're hoping to have the same success this coming year. And one thing I hadn't mentioned with our regular volunteers, our year-long reunion volunteers, is we try to celebrate success as often as possible and make sure that we thank them as often as possible. So Alice has started a great tactic of reaching out to volunteers, even if they're off cycle, to let them know about what's going on at the university, sending birthday cards, and just continually communicating to them. So when giving days like this come along and we ask them to re-engage, they're more apt to say yes. So that's why we've seen such a strong growth in our one-day giving opportunities. We also try to provide a lot of resources to them. So we have created, this is actually an active website right now for our upcoming Giving Day. This has access to social media tweets, images that they can use, contact information, and we also try to, a few weeks before our Giving Day, have a phone call where they can hear what's going on at the university, hear about the challenges that will be happening, meaning the challenges on the Giving Day, not challenges that we're having. But if they are having challenges, they can speak with us too. So a few takeaways. Personalize your volunteer outreach if you can. Oh, the one thing I didn't mention, which I meant to mention, is the reason why it's been so successful is that we offer all of our volunteers a phone call. So we definitely recruit them via email. We send out thousands and thousands of emails to recruit these volunteers, making them all feel special, because they are special, to reconnect with the university. But we have 10 to 15-minute phone calls with almost every single volunteer that we recruit. Not all calls yield a yes, but it is a great conversation. And so we probably have, we had about 430 active volunteers last year, year-round. We probably had about 900 conversations, because people sometimes say no, but they are at least having a conversation with us, and that has really been a positive impact on our volunteer program overall.
I'd say that's great prospecting as well. Any information that you would get, you'd pass along to major gift officers, and people that would maybe never have responded to a major gift officer outreach for a visit took that call, and you had a good conversation with them.
Yeah, or if they, had something, that was not super positive to share, at least now we have that information. It just was not responding, so that's been great. And trying to find ways to re-engage them, like Giving Tuesday, has been really helpful for us.
Great. I just want to call out again, on the two slides that Rachel shared, they've more than doubled both their total undergraduate volunteers as well as their Giving Tuesday volunteers since 2016, which is definitely an incredible feat, and I think it's due to really celebrating successes, providing excellent resources, and just making them feel like a part of the greater success that you're having.
Great.
Yeah. So we've talked about retention, we've talked about volunteers, we've talked about crowdfunding, but as Pat from Catalant was talking about, the end of the fiscal is a little bit stressful. What did you call it, the June scramble?
Something like that.
So when June hits, how do you all come together and just march your way to the finish line and get the results that you do?
Sure.
So we have a tactical conversation with a lot of internal partners to make sure we have a good plan for the month of June, making sure we're thanking as many people. It's about the relationships, the engagement, the stewardship. So these are a few different things that we did this past June. So we sent out thousands and thousands of personal emails with specific goals for individuals. Again, a positive response from an email that went out. You're part of this class. We have a goal to reach this year, making it was only 4 donors for this class, so really making it as concise as possible. Really great positive responses. The hustle text was actually followed up after 2 of these emails that people may have received. And then we actually created this past year an active donor wall. This was sent out as a thank you to all of our donors in June, encouraging them to share it with their friends that might not be on the list. If you search for your name and your name wasn't there, an icon would pop up and say, you need to make your gift so you can be on the list. So that was a new way that we use this tactic to do a stewardship touch of the month of June. Normally we're just asking, but it was a great way to thank our donors who had been part of it and ask them to join us in asking their friends to give back.
And then finally, here's Jumbo, our mascot, hopping on the contact night calls. This is just a prompt for us to talk about our relationship with major gift officers at the end of the year as well. We are actively working with them throughout the year on Leadership Annual Fund Ask, looking at their portfolio, reminding of who hasn't upgraded or who has not renewed at this point. And then at the end of the year, we make sure that every donor that's given $500 or more for the past typically 3 years gets a customized personal outreach from a major gift officer or from someone on staff that we assign it to. We use Box, which is our dynamic online sharing service, to keep everything in real time. So if we see that you haven't reached out to the people we've assigned to you by June 25th, we'll just reassign them. So it's immediate. So we're not wondering if someone's been reached out to. We kind of had the shadow system that we used. I know we don't like to use shadow systems, but it's just helpful at the end of the year. The information does get into our database, but it's just a really helpful way of comprehensive outreach.
Great. Okay, so what's next?
I'm tired.
Yeah, it's been a lot, but what's next? I know you have plans.
I guess I'll go first. So we obviously want to continue to build retention and have as many donors come join us every year. So we're going to be really refocusing on our recurring giving program. There's many ways that you can make a recurring gift through Tufts, but we have not done, I think, the most comprehensive job to make sure that they're being stewarded properly. They're a different type of donor. Obviously, they're a loyal donor, but making a monthly gift is very different than, the act of making a gift and then doing again a year later. So we really want to refocus and make sure we have a great plan in place for FY21 as we think about it in FY20.
And for me, we've seen, I think this bears out across probably all your institutions, crowdfunding is a really great acquisition tool and reacquisition tool for people who are kind of long lapsed. But, then the challenge for us, what's next, is kind of how do we then bring them along and bring them more into the annual fund marketing that we already have so that, if we bring them in something really exciting, how can we kind of broaden and deepen their relationship with us?
And then, not to sound too jargony, but it's really the idea of our digital marketing ecosystem that needs to be improved. We don't have all those crosswalks done. We're not really acting on the information that we have. It sits in disparate databases, or one email client goes over and we have something in crowdfunding that doesn't fill into our Salesforce Marketing Cloud, doesn't sync back to our database. It's really thinking about how we close those gaps and give our alumni and our constituents the experience that they kind of tell us that they want and we know that they want, and to be able to deliver on that. A lot more journey mapping, a lot more reaching them where they are. A lot more soliciting them on their timetable, not ours. So if they've gone to an event, they've opened 10 emails, that's when we should send them that email that says, hey, and we see that you're feeling good right now. Obviously, this wouldn't be the text of it. But this is the right time to ask them for a gift. Right now, we're sending things on our timeline. It's like, here's the dean's appeal, here's the president's appeal, the follow-up email from it. That's helpful for us in planning, but it's not being donor-centric. We need to get better about that. And then just a little bit more higher level, I just feel like higher ed as a whole, there's a lot of negative press. I think we have to be a better job of going on offense, of talking about the important work that higher ed is in our states, in our country, in our world, the impact that it has, and not be afraid of the controversies. I mean, there's the admissions scandal, there's the cost of higher education, there's all these different things that we hear, and we work at these universities where we know what an incredible impact it has on the students, what the faculty research does, and I think we just have to be better about talking about it. And I think now more than ever, our job to tell that story is much more important.
Drop the mic. Okay. All right. Do you want to touch on these or no?
So we like to use Bitmojis in our office. If we are working on an activity together, or during alumni weekend, we're kind of all over the place. We try to celebrate success through Bitmojis whenever we can. So these are our Bitmojis. Yeah.
Culture.
Yeah.
Culture.
Well, thank you so much, Tufts team. This was an incredible kind of tactical conversation. We probably have time for 1 or 2 questions if folks have them. Yes. And Mike's getting his steps in again.
Good job, Mike. Mike with the mic.
Mike with the mic.
Was there any fear or hesitation in your office about soliciting people for specific funds? Because I know every time we bring up crowdfunding, there's a lot of fear about cannibalizing the annual fund, and then it's okay if you do it to non-donors only, where, you know, I've done analysis to show that multi-fund donors are our most loyal and your best prospects are your current donors, but we're still struggling to be able to do anything that's really based on specific funds.
I can just touch on it, and Tessa has more detail, but as we're getting this started, absolutely, there was that fear, and it's just kind of consistently having the conversation, say, okay, are we acquiring more donors? Are we getting more value out of the donors that we have? The answer is probably going to be no. This is not a solution, but it's a tactic that you have in your overall marketing. And we've seen incredible second, third, fourth gifts from people, from trustees, from top donors that see a project, and then all of a sudden we're like, we didn't know that they were interested in that, and that helps us have the conversation. So yeah, it's a little scary to kind of go off that cliff, but once you do, you realize if we don't do that, then we're just making a mistake, we're not being donor-centric. I don't know, Tessa, do you have other?
Yeah, that conversation came up so much when I was sort of like doing a roadshow of like, we should do crowdfunding here at Tufts, and it was a lot of like, just trust me. And also, yes, like we would be bad at our jobs if we didn't get people excited about things. And so for us to give an opportunity to be like, look at this amazing program, and if people want to give to it, there's no way we want to close the door in their face on that. So it's just being like, just let it ride. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah. Great. I think, probably last question.
All of your volunteers, undergraduates, or do you do any student volunteers?
For crowdfunding specifically?
Yeah. Or
In general.
Oh, in general, we have both student volunteers for crowdfunding and student volunteers for our student philanthropy program. And then oftentimes we're seeing our student volunteers transition to be young alumni volunteers. We have a really strong first reunion committee, and we've seen a strong increase in first reunion giving because of the size of our volunteer group. It's been great.
Good. Well, we are standing between a break, which we don't like to do. So please give a round of applause for the Tufts team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.